I was asked a question recently. How many multi-tools does someone actually need? And it forced me to reevaluate some of the things that I had discussed in my 25-year update on multi-tools. We covered 10 categories in that video, some of which I think were probably wrong, but it forced me to think about what is truly essential. How many would you actually need to cover all aspects? And led me to realize there really are only 4 distinct categories of multi-tools. Now, in the 80s, Tim Leatherman introduced the PST as his first tool, and then the next two, the mini tool and the super tool, embody 3 distinct categories of what we're going to be talking about today. And then eventually they came out with the crunch, which will perfectly embody what we're talking about when it comes to the 4th category. What are they? We have replacement tools, aka something that would replace your folding knife. We have complementary tools, tools that would go along with your dedicated cutting implement. And we also have what I'm going to call last resort tools. These are things you keep on your hip in case you lose your dedicated items. They're designed to be as close as you can to those primary implements. And then, of course, we have our 4th category of specialized tools. Now, we're going to break these down a little bit further and talk about the modern interpretations. The PST was really great because it was only 5 ounces, and at the time, it wouldn't be very uncommon for knives to basically be slip joint capable 2-handed knives. So this wasn't very far from that functionality. But today we have kind of a different expectation. So a tool that might replace a folding knife, and actually this was more of a specialized tool, so that's not a good example. It would be something like the Skeletal, the Arc, the P2, the P4, the Victorinox MX Clip, and the Leatherman Curl. All of these tools have a couple things in common. They have one-handed blade, and they have a pocket clip. So they can properly substitute for your respective folding knife. Now, these are not for everyone, and a lot of people will choose to use a folding knife instead. And for those individuals, they probably don't feel the need to increase the weight of what they're carrying in order to have a plier and a screwdriver, the 2 most important additional implements to go along with your blade. But there are others, like myself, who feel that a folding knife is just a less optimal version of a multi-tool. To each their own, right? But that's what this category embodies. The ability to replace your folding knife with something that is more capable at the cost of weight and space. Now, the next category is the one that we have almost nothing to really lean on. It is really a category that needs a lot more work in the market, and I think is the one that will probably be the most appealing, and that is a complementary tool. Right after the PST, he released this incredible piece of engineering. This is the mini tool, and actually is a full-sized plier. It's the same plier that you would find in the PST. The exact same plier, only it is in a smaller form factor, and it was just freaking phenomenal. It had a minimal combination of tools. We have a can opener, bottle opener, and then inside we have access to a blade as well as a flathead. And the way it works was so cool because you could just pull this away to open the tools instead of reaching in to grab them. It was just, I would pay good money to have this come back. Absolutely, without question. I love this thing, and I wish they would just do something in the modern sense to bring this thing back with one of the more advanced plier heads that we find in something like the Leatherman Curl, which has been improved is in strength. So this is a much stronger plier head than the original PST. I would, a mini tool version of this, just take my money. Just take my money right now. A complementary tool. It doesn't even have to have the blade, but it should have at minimum screwdrivers along with that plier. 2 things that would complement a cutting edge very, very well. Now you might say, okay, what about a scissor? Well, a scissor isn't always correct, even when it's a scissor related task. You might have a small scissor, but need something much more heavy duty, and vice versa. You might need to make precision cuts, but you only have a large scissor. Scissors are weird because not one type will cover all applications. The one from the 91mm Victorinox is probably the most versatile, but it also takes up a lot of space. So, a little bit of a side there. So complementary tools. We've had some in the past, maybe not even designed for that original aspect, but they were quite good at it. Something like the Leatherman Leap, which was technically designed for children, but at 4.3 ounces and a full-size plier head with locking implements on the outside, a really good tool set. This thing was phenomenal. I would also like to see something like this come back, but maybe designed for adults instead. We don't have much more. And I think what kind of spawned this a little bit is that companies are starting to realize, and so we're getting things like this Byberry, which currently is out of stock. But this is, I think, where people will be introduced to multi-tools who might have only been carrying folding knives, and is such a good combination, right? It's a small, compact tool, easy to carry. You don't really know it's there. And when you pull it out, it gets the job done. The Power Pint right now from SOG is probably the leader in this category at 4.3 ounces. This is the Power Leader version of it because it has a great compound leverage system on their pliers and a full 1/4-inch bit driver. Very compact. Frankly, if you get rid of most of these tools and just shrink it down, it would probably be even better. And then the third category of the four is the one category that is dominated by multi-tools only. No matter what you're talking about, this is something that really can only be accomplished by a multi-tool. If we are talking about how many multi-tools do we need, you need at least one that does this, because there is nothing else on the market that does exactly this purpose. And that's being a last resort. A last resort tool is something you might carry with you if you're in an environment that has limited access to resources. That could be something along the lines of hiking, or boating, or something where if you become separated from your primary tools, it enters into an emergency situation where you might need multiple different applications to get yourself out of that struggle, that problem. So a tool that has all its components built into it with nothing to lose, with as big an implement combination as possible, and the versatility as much as possible, would be something that makes a lot of sense. So a super tool, whether it's a super tool 200, 300, or the original, all of these are great for last resort tools because you can't lose any of it as long as you have your tool. There's no spare components. All the implements are designed to be as long as possible, which is going to be ideal for situations where emergencies may arise. You might think to yourself, okay, what about the Leatherman Surge? As you're going to find out, the Leatherman Surge is actually not a last resort tool. It's what I would categorize as a specialized tool. And so because this category is so diverse, we're going to dedicate a lot of time to it. Now, I'm sure plenty of people are going to be like, why are you even worrying about this? It's just semantics anyway. But for me, I get asked a lot of questions, and I want to give people the best answer I can. So understanding what makes a Surge different from a super tool is very valuable, right? And so I can then share that knowledge, I can explain it, and hopefully someone will get the right tool that they need. That's really the reason I'm doing this. But if you can benefit from these distinctions, hopefully it can reach a lot more people all at once. That's the reason I'm trying to figure this out. So heavy duty tools like the Surge, like the Dual Force, like the Center Drive, those are all specialized tools in my mind. There's a couple reasons for that. They usually contain components that are specific to a certain task, and only some people want them, but they're not as general use as some of the more compact implements like the Arc or the Wave or whatever. The Dual Force, we have a slip joint plier. Now I've modified mine, so ignore the shape of the plier head. That's a very specific thing. In addition to that, it also has high emphasis on using the screwdriver by having one on the outside that is center lined, right? So being as close to a true screwdriver as possible, but just like with many of the things we're going to talk about, they have loose components that can be lost. That's true also of the Gerber center drive, maybe a little bit less so, but we still have loose bits. We have bits here, and without the full complement, it loses a lot of its capability. Which leads me to the Leatherman Surge. It is what we would always define as heavy duty. In fact, Leatherman has defined that as heavy duty, but I'm going to go further and say that there is a distinct difference between something like the Super Tool, the Victorinox Swiss Tool, or the Leatherman Surge. The Leatherman Surge loses a lot of its value if you are not carrying it in a holster or in a bag with all of its accessories. All the accessories that go along with the Surge make or break it as an option. You really need all of them to maximize its capability. At the very minimum, you're going to want to get a bit kit to go along with it, and you're going to want to make sure you're carrying the spare component for the T-shank, whether it's installed with the saw or with the diamond file. If you have one or the other, but not both, you lose a lot of its versatility. And that's what makes it such a unique tool. But also one that not everyone's going to choose. It is also not a tool I would want to carry personally in an emergency scenario. The last thing I want is a implement that has loose parts. That would be devastating if it's an emergency scenario. And I've actually had this exact thing happen where, and it actually is this tool, and it was actually, I never bothered to even change it out. I went to use the bit holder I had used every other component of this tool, and I needed a screwdriver. And I realized that I had swapped out the regular driver with the T6 and the T8, and I didn't have my bit kit with me. And that meant I had to go find a screwdriver instead of using what I had on me. And it drove me crazy. And that would never have happened had I had any of the tools that have everything included, like the Super Tool, like the Victorinox Swiss Tool. Now there's the Super Tool 300s, the modern equivalency. I can't seem to find right now, but you get the idea. Big distinction: last resort tool, specialized tool. And it's the risk reward part that makes it specialized versus last resort. This has the most potential to be expanded and utilized in a lot of different ways. We have the ratcheting bit extender. We have multiple different types of bit kits and components that can be changed into it. We have all different types of T-shanks that can be added to it. But all of this adds bulk, not necessarily something that you would be willing to carry on your hip in a compact sheath. But a Super Tool 300 or the Victorinox Swiss Tool, they come in very, very compact, very easy to carry sheaths. And you know, as long as you have that tool, you have access to its full capability. The same thing is going to be true with the dual force. It's going to be true with the center drive. And it's going to be true for other specialized tools, but in a different capacity, like this one right here from Byberry. I just finished reviewing. It's part of the reason this video is being made. There are some people who are going to absolutely adore it for certain contexts, and then some people are going to be like, I don't need that thing. And that's fine. I think this is probably my favorite area to explore, because there are so many specialized tools now on the market that do different things, but they're not for everyone. So, curious to hear your thoughts on this subject matter. It's more of a, anyway, it's something that I've been mulling around, and I really would like to discuss it. So if you have an opinion, please leave it in the comments. I will be reading. As always, thank you guys for your time, and we'll talk again soon.